Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 296.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about cash flow. I know you're surprised, but no, we're going to talk about cash flow from a completely different aspect. We've talked about it one other time, but I think we're going to learn even more when it comes to understanding how cash flow, affordable housing, and most importantly, mobile home parks can fit together for you. Today we have with us one of the United States, possibly the world's foremost experts on the subject. And what I'm excited about is not only are they the fifth largest, they have 200 parks, 26 different states. It is amazing the amount of people. Just think about it. The number of people that they house on a daily basis. They have a lot of experience, and starting from zero to hero, so to speak. How do you start from zero? How do you have some? But what I'm really interested to know are those secret things that can never be taught, that were always caught. And we're going to do our best to ask our guest today to reveal them to you. I have with me none other than Frank Rolfe. He's been an investor in mobile home parks for almost 2 decades. That's a long time, and has owned and operated hundreds of mobile home parks during that time. He and his partner, Dave Reynolds, they have, like I said, a lot of parks in a lot of different states. But what's really interesting to me is systems that run things like this. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to understand their passion behind it, why it's important, and why you might want to consider it today. Because I think if you are ready, the teacher has appeared. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you are here. Now, most of the time, or actually all the time, when someone's here for the first time, what I typically do is I ask them the same question. So I got to ask you the same thing. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Hulk, all those people. And I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton in common. Chief among them is that we use our special abilities to save people. Occasionally we get dressed up and wear special outfits. Sometimes we call them suits and ties, to go out there and serve people in various different ways. And at the end of the day, we're using our unique talents and abilities to make other people's lives better. Also, like superheroes, however, we kind of had a beginning. You know, before Spider-Man was climbing walls and all this other stuff, he was just kind of taking photos at the newspaper, you know, trying to go to college, that type of thing. He had an origin story. So what we want to know is, before the mobile home parks, before the whole idea of even real estate entered into you or your partner's mind, we want to know, who is Frank Rolfe?
Well, Jay, Frank Rolfe is a guy who basically got interested in business in high school. I had a summer intern job, so I knew I really liked the world of business. I just liked the structure and having an office and all of that. I've always had an interest in making money, so those basically combined for me to want to have a business career. Mm-hmm. I got into business basically trying to write an essay for a business school application. And so I was going to start a business for a year and use that as my essay. And so I started a billboard company.
Okay.
And that's how I got into it. It was started off. I always just wanted to be honest with you, a account executive in an ad agency. That was what I really wanted to do. But somewhere along the way, I ended up being an entrepreneur.
I love it. He's like, I was on the way to Albuquerque, and on the way there, I built a business instead. I love it. I got it. Now, you said a billboard company?
Yeah, what happened was I went to Stanford. I got out a year early. And back then, this is in the late 70s, early 80s, it's very common on a business school application that you would start a business, whatever it was. And then your essay would be about that business, which gave the business school affirmation you really were into business. So
I
I
see.
asked people, what should I start? And somebody threw out the idea of a billboard company, and it was that random. And I just basically started one on a lark for a year.
Okay, so you survey your friends, someone says billboard company, and you go, okay, sounds great. That
Yeah, that's it.
I love it. Okay, so you had no background in
Zero.
doing this before.
Yeah, zero. So I went out there for a year. I beat the streets trying to find a billboard location. No idea what I was doing. Got shot down over and over and over. And then nearing the end of the year, I was able to get my three billboard location leases and permits. And so I had three signs, but I had a bunch pending. So I thought I'll go ahead and go one more year and try and round it out to 10, close up the loose ends, sell it, go on to business school. But by the end of the second year, same story, more deals pending. Thought I'll go one more year. And you could guess what happened. For 14 years, I did that and never went to business school.
Yeah, okay. That was actually my question is, did you end up actually going to business school because I think you actually did go to business school. It was just not the traditional one.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I went to my own homegrown business school, of which I was both the head and the dean of students, and just me as the only student in it. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And you gave yourself a passing grade?
I'm not really sure. In the first year, probably a D, but it got better.
And so after time, so this essay to get into business school eventually became how many billboards?
I ended up with 300 billboards, which made me the largest private owner of billboards in Dallas-Fort Worth.
Got it. Now, just to be clear, especially because some people may not have seen them. They may live in a place where, even though technology reaches them through the iPhone today they spend a lot of time online. Just explain what a billboard is, just in case.
Sure. All a billboard is, it's just a structure visible from the road that you put an ad on. It can be made of wood. It can be made of metal. It can be mounted directly to a wall. But basically, as a billboard owner, what you are basically the agent that you're the intermediary between the landowner who has the property and the advertiser who wants to put an ad on it. So that's your world. You're basically signing ground leases and also renting ad space all at the same time.
So it's kind of like you're playing an arbitrage game, but in the middle between the lease amount for the space versus what you're charging for what you're charging to the advertiser.
That's absolutely correct.
Got it. And 300 of them.
300 of them. Yep.
That sounds like a lot of numbers and things to manage simultaneously.
It was a lot. Yes.
Okay. So you traded that in for mobile homes.
Yeah, what happened was I was minding my own business. I thought I would keep doing that forever. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I got a call from a public company, and I sold out to them. And I was suddenly self-unemployed.
Got it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense because I'm assuming by the 300 billboard time, you built a system that could run it. And
Yep.
They were interested in that system and saw the returns that were there possible. And then they could probably, I'm guessing, securitize that in some way.
Well, what the larger billboard companies do is they charge higher rents.
I see.
So the signs I was getting $500 a month for, they would get $1,500 a month for. So it was a win-win for everybody. I got a good price, and yet they didn't pay that much that they couldn't get a really good return on it.
Got it. That makes sense. So now you find yourself in a situation where you've got nothing to do.
That's right. So I then think, well, what do I do now? So I started calling people again, saying any great ideas on businesses to start or run. And I called a guy that I built 2 billboards on who had a mobile home park. And on that one call, he said, look no further. I'll sell you my mobile home park right now for $400,000 with $10,000 down, and I'll carry $390,000 for 30 years.
What?
So, yeah, seriously. And that's how I got in the business. I thought, I can't beat that offer. So I took over his park.
Now, so that everybody is clear, how much experience did you have in mobile homes before you started?
Zero. The only time I'd ever been in a park, in fact, was to build those two billboards. That's it. So I'd been in the park for probably a total of maybe 4 days as we built the signs, and then beyond that, since the guy was my landowner, he would periodically call me, ask me to drive by his park just to see if it was looking okay. So I had driven through it a few times, but I had no other association with it than that.
Okay, so now that we'll call the Billboards your bachelor's degree in business, then this would be your master's class?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
Got it. So what were some of the things that you would say that you now know that you wish you knew on that first transaction?
Well, the first park I bought was exactly not the park you would want to buy. It had all kinds of utility problems. So it it pretty much drove me insane. It was very profitable in the end, but it was not the kind of park. I never again bought a park like that. So I was just lucky that it turned out well because I didn't have any idea what I was doing.
Now, because I know, and to prevent the emails from coming at me, what kind of park is this that we should not buy?
Okay, a mobile home park is just basically a parking lot, Jay. So, I mean, that's what it is. But like any good parking lot, you got to buy a parking lot that's got good infrastructure. You wouldn't want to buy a parking lot where the pavement was totally deteriorating, right, and things like that. So, in that particular park, it was a very old park. It was built in 1951.
And what time was this? If it was 1951, what time when you were building or buying this one?
I bought that park in 1996.
Okay, so that was like 45 years later. Got it.
And I didn't know at that time that the mobile home parks they built in the 50s had a couple problems. One is what's called master metered electricity, which means the park owns all the power, so you're a power company. And then it also had master metered gas. Which means that you are in charge of the gas. And so those are two things you don't want to be in charge of. I didn't even know what those meant, literally. When I bought the park, I had no idea that I had just stepped into the shoes of being a gas and a power company.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know many listeners and myself, we have some experience with apartments. And I'm always recommending not to do that if you can avoid it with the apartment. So I got it. So master metered gas and electricity. Interesting. Okay. So you got a lesson then right there. Or at least.
Yes, I did. I had, but both systems failed on me. The gas system failed in the first year, and the electricity system failed on me about 5 years later.
Okay. So, but 5 years later, though, did you start buying more parks in that 5 year span?
Yeah, yes, I had, but it still scared me to death.
I see.
Yeah. And all the parks I bought in the early days, they all had the same methodology. They were all seller financed, low down payment. So I would basically look around for deals. I mean, my second deal was $60,000 with $5,000 down, and for $60,000, I got 15 mobile home lots, about 8 mobile homes, and a brick house.
Okay, now I know what someone is saying right now. Where on planet Earth is Frank doing this? Because the numbers to some sound unbelievable. Let's just put it that way.
Sure. That deal was in Fort Worth, Texas. In fact, it was in a city called Lake Worth, which is just north of downtown Fort Worth. So it's in a major market. What happened on that deal, the reason that deal was so cheap, it was an inheritance. So a guy inherits this mobile home park. He doesn't know anything about it. It scares him to death. The tenants look really rough to him. So he just basically walks it. He doesn't charge them rent. He just is selling this. When I bought the park, he did not even have a rent roll, which means he did not even know who was living in the park.
Wow.
And that's why it was so cheap. He just didn't want to have any affiliation with it at all.
Got it. Now, you said something that I think many people, or at least is a common perception when it comes to mobile home parks. You said the tenant looks rough.
Yeah.
Describe what you mean by that and why that that doesn't necessarily mean what some people may think it means.
Sure. Well, when I said a tenant looks rough, what happens in a mobile home park, like anything, it could be an apartment, it could be a by the week motel. If you don't manage your property, just like your yard, if you don't mow it, it just goes to seed. It just turns terrible. And what'll happen is, as your property deteriorates, reasonable customers who want to have a nice, safe, clean place to live, they run off, and they are then replaced with people that don't care about those things, which are typically not what you want as a tenant base. So the park had evolved into literally carnival workers, street people, crazy people. On that park, when I went door to door to build my rent roll, I was chased down the street by one tenant, a big, hefty, bearded man wearing only his underwear, opened the door and immediately started running at me and chased me out of the park. Okay? And you can't build a business like that. So when I say rough, what I mean is basically people who don't have the desire to be, members of the community at large, but basically are looking for places to crash because they don't have a job, or they're, on drugs or whatever the heck they're doing. And you can't build a business around them. I mean, we're trying to build nice, again, safe, clean, affordable housing spots. And that you can't do it in the absence of management. It doesn't happen.
Agreed. Now you mentioned though, which then brings up the topic of how do you go from that experience, and not only do you decide to, not run away, you fixed it, and now that's kind of what you guys are able to do. What makes you want to deal with that when so many others would just say run the other way?
Okay, well, on any property, you can turn around virtually anything if you put in the effort, as long as you can fix what's wrong, right? So if the park has decent infrastructure and an operating permit and a decent location, there's no reason why it can't just be just a fine investment. But you have to have systems in place to make it work, just like the city does, right? Mm-hmm. So we have two key things we do. One's called no pay, no stay. That means if you don't pay your rent, we evict you. And the other is no play, no stay, which means if you don't play by the rules, we evict you. And going back to that first park, that little tiny park, what I did was, the guy that chased me, various others, they blew out almost immediately because they weren't paying any rent. They had just effectively broken into abandoned mobile homes and were living in them, literally like in sleeping bags on the floor.
I see.
And so they all left. And as they left, I would then renovate the home to make it nice, and then bring in nice people who wanted to pay rent and wanted to play by the rules. And when you start doing that, it empowers the entire community, right? So the other people in there, as I'm cleaning it up, they started cleaning up, because before, why would they bother? Why bother mowing your yard if nobody else is mowing their yard, right? Why bother to do anything? Why bother to paint your house or pick up your trash? But once you start doing it, when you start showing people the path, they get interested, because really any sane person wants to have a decent place to live, right? I mean, that's 99.9% of Americans. Now, there is that one little tidbit doesn't care, and that's what that park had in it. And there's a lot of parks that have that, but that's not because that's what mobile home parks represent. That's just what happens when you have bad management.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, just because it's there, say if someone's looking to acquire a property today, just because that 1% might be there, that's not necessarily in and of itself a reason to run the other way.
Absolutely not. You can always clean that out. You'll have the full support of the city and the police and the community at large in bringing those kind of properties back to life, right?
Got it.
So it's a win-win. Nobody wants to have next to their house, down the street from their house, a place that harbors people who have no desire to be good members of the community. And it's not an income issue. It's an attitudinal issue. I mean, some people just don't want to fit in, don't care, are more interested in being destructive than being the solution. So the starting spot in any mobile home park is you got to get rid of that. Now, a lot of the ones we buy are just fine. People have lived there for decades, and there's no problem. But you have to set a minimum bar. I mean, you have to tell people these are our expectations. Your yard has to be clean of litter. It has to be mowed. Your home has to look decent. You cannot have loud music at night. You give them some very basic, but not that complicated benchmarks. But you got to bring law and order. It's like, you ever seen a Western, and town, and the town's gone amok, and people are shooting guns in the air. They're drunk 24/7, and everyone is terrorized. And the sheriff comes in and cleans it up. Well, we're that sheriff because we can't run a business like that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, people who think they can. I mean, there are people who think that being a landlord is just basically raising the rent and giving nothing back, and if something breaks, just looking the other way. That isn't a good business model. I mean, if that was a good business model, I could reel off, lots of, Forbes 400 people who did that, but I can't name any because there aren't any, right? I mean, right. You have to provide a decent quality product.
Agreed. Now, when I'm listening to you talk and having some experience with the apartments and whatnot, I have to ask the question, though, why do you? Because in order to clean up a place, first of all, in order to take that on, I think it takes a special person, a special desire, to make things better for people. And again, it's not like you're living there per se. My question becomes, why do you care so much to actually do this work? You've probably noticed a pattern by now that many of the entrepreneurs that you've listened to, talked to, that we've talked with, they have many other reasons other than I just want to make a whole bunch of money for what it is that they do. And they find ways to take what it is that they would like to do and find ways to serve humanity in many different forms and fashions so that they can feel fulfilled as well as possibly fill their pockets or the pockets of investors too. There's probably a clue there. So make sure you pick it up and figure it out. Ask yourself the question, why on earth do you want to be involved in anything, let alone real estate or whatever business venture you are currently seeking? Because there's answers there to those questions that may actually uncover a new product, a new service, a new way of serving people that could be bigger, better, and badder than anything that's out there already. Here's my point. You never know when that idea is going to hit you. But what I do hope you gain, if nothing else, from this particular episode is the understanding that when the idea hits you, it is time for you to move. So let's go find out why Frank actually does this business.
Yes, yeah. I have always been into fixing stuff. Like, you've probably seen the show American Pickers. I
love that show.
Strange guy that buys stuff that's broken that he sees, at the junk sale and brings it back to life. So I have always enjoyed doing that. Antiques, whatever it is, I like that. But also, we like having high levels of return, and the highest levels of return in real estate typically are when you buy stuff that has great underlying fundamentals, but is being terribly managed, and you fix it, right? I mean, that's the best way to get really high yields, because a lot of other people won't touch it. It scares them. They don't like it, and so you can get really good deals. I mean, going back to that deal, I mean, how in the world can you buy a brick house, three bedroom, 2-bath brick house, and 15 mobile home lots and about 8 mobile homes for $60,000? It makes no sense, right? I mean, it's stupid.
No, it doesn't. It has to be an extreme situation, and
right.
Yeah.
So what happens is you're trying to buy broken stuff and fix it. If that park had been, in good condition, it would have been worth $300,000, something like that. And so, but that's what we're always on the lookout for, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different buyers who like to buy different stuff. I mean, there's people who like to buy new cars, people who like to buy used cars, people who like to buy classic cars and restore them. So there's a lot of different buyers, but we just like stuff that we can buy that's broken, that's fixed.
Got it. And that makes sense. That's where you've developed your expertise, and you make that very, very clear in what it is that you're doing and talking about. Now, this whole concept, though, seems to revolve around a desire to provide, we'll call it affordable housing for individuals.
Sure.
Would you say that that's become something of a mission, passion, vision? What's driving that?
Well, the whole affordable housing industry, when I got in it and when Dave got in it 20 years ago, nobody cared. Everyone thought Americans were just getting richer every day. And,
Whoa, wait. Americans aren't getting richer every day?
No, I'm sadly, the stats would say not. All right. So
got it.
It's been kind of interesting to be in a business that is hot, because when I was in the billboard business, it was not. And so I'd not ever been in anything that actually you felt like you were on the forefront of something bigger.
Right.
And so this is my one shot at that. So, since we've gotten in the industry, all the stats for America have just gone terrible, right? I mean, the Great Recession lumbers on. I think over half of all the jobs created are minimum wage. Our fastest growing industry is fast food. There's a lot of terrible stats. I mean, just the amount of people have the disposable money in case of emergencies. I mean, I think the bottom 20% of Americans have 4,000 or less. The bottom 10% have negative 2,000. So it's a world of hurt from how things used to be. And so suddenly people are really getting attuned to affordable housing, whereas before they could care less. I mean, prior to the Great Recession, why would you care about mobile home parks? Because you could just go out and buy a brick custom home for $0 down, no income doc, and here's the key. So the whole perception of America, I think, has changed a lot over these last 7-8 years.
Agreed. Now, when you say the business is hot, I think I know what you mean, but I want everyone else to know what you mean as well. Why would you say the business is hot now?
Okay. Well, number one, our demand is off the Richter scale. We have our typical mobile home park gets about 30 calls a week, and our top ones we get 100 calls a week. So picture that. You're sitting there and your phone rings 100 times a week.
Oh, and so that everyone's clear, calls for what specifically?
People looking for mobile homes to rent or buy.
Exactly. Okay.
Second reason it's hot is that people on Wall Street are getting interested, right? So you've had 3 $2 billion transactions in the last 180 days. You had a group called Carefree Communities, a second group called North Star, and a third group called Yes Communities, all selling to international buyers. So, I mean, that's another symbol that it's getting hot. Third is just, if you just watch the media, right? I mean, constant barrage of articles on affordable housing, mobile home parks. I mean, just in the last week, there's an article in U.S. News and World Report, in fact, featuring none other than myself. There was another article 3 days after that, another article in MSN a day ago on affordable housing. So, it's starting to finally get some awareness going.
Exactly. Now, and I normally don't ask this type of question, but I think you and I are going to be of the same opinion, because it seems as though what you're describing is, as an economic climate, say for any particular jurisdiction, we'll just say the United States in this particular case, actually declines, your business gets better.
Absolutely correct. We are what you would call contrarian investment, because as the economy declines, we get stronger, just like gold, right? So basically, when times are lousy, more people need affordable housing, our demand goes up. And it's been going up since 2008 pretty much consistently. And but the worst thing that can happen to mobile home parks is prosperity. That would be a disaster. So if suddenly, don't ask me how it's possible, if all Americans were making 60 grand a year and up, everyone would move into those brick custom homes again, this time with full income documentation and a real down payment, and they wouldn't need us anymore. But I don't see it happening.
I unfortunately don't see that happening either. I don't see that happening either. Now, when it comes to mobile homes, since you've reinvented yourself from the billboards, I hesitate to ask, is there anything you see that would be better than that?
Better than
the mobile homes currently? Because I'm assuming at the time billboards seemed like the best thing, and then the offer came, and then
Yeah, I don't see you mean like another form of real estate? You mean?
Another form of real estate, another form of business.
Yeah, see, we because a lot of the parks we buy, they come with other things. So we'll buy a mobile home park, and this one will have a commercial building. The next one will have self-storage. The next one has apartments. So we are actually in many other real estate niches with our parks. We're in the RV park business, the self-storage business, the rent house business. All these different things, the apartments, but we don't really like any of those. I mean, we've tried them, we've tested them. We just don't like them that much. So the answer would be no. I haven't seen anything I like even remotely as much as mobile home parks.
This is good. Then tell us, please, for those who are maybe even anti-mobile home park before listening to you, here's your chance. Tell us why they should be pro.
Well, here's the issue. When you have a mobile home park, we just rent land and you own the improvements. I think it all revolves around the improvements. That's one big item. So when you have apartments, you have to maintain that building. You have to re-roof it. So all the time you think you're doing good, and then something's wrong with the roof. Wipes out all the money you made the last 2 years or something, right?
I'm aware.
Okay, mobile home parks, we just rent land. Land doesn't depreciate. So when the customer's home roof leaks, we're not in the loop. When their washer dryer goes out, we don't care. When their toilet stops functioning, we don't care. We're not in that. And so that's the big one, is we're not in the improvement business. We're just in the land business. So that is one big reason we prefer the parks to the other asset types. The other is just the stability. I mean, our typical customer, when they move in, they stay there most of their life. The mobile homes can't move. It costs $5,000 to move a mobile home, roughly. So the mobile homes, they never leave. They're not even roadworthy. I mean, you can't take a 1970s mobile home and out on the freeway. The whole thing will collapse.
Right.
So our revenues are very stable. If you look at self-storage by comparison, on national averages, they churn 10% per month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's insane. So we love the stability. We love the demand. It's an essential good. You don't need self-storage. You don't need your RV, but you do need a place to live.
Some people would argue that RV point, especially in California, but I hear you.
Well, in California, a lot of people actually live in RVs full time. And I've been to those parks, where the park it's actually a mobile home park, but it's almost all RV.
Right.
You don't see that in a lot of other states because our RVs, they lack the insulation of the mobile home. So, for example, like in North Dakota, it would be really hard to heat them.
Ooh.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about. But in most cases, our industry is just all about, effectively having a yard, having your own home, but we don't have to get involved in your own home. And that's why we like it.
The one word I don't think anyone was thinking is stability when you say that. And would you also say that the income is durable, meaning able to withstand different economic climates?
Absolutely. Let's be honest. There's been no climate but decline. And when do you consider the last time we were doing good?
I was trying not to say that, Frank.
I'm older than you are, and I can remember it. And it was called, probably in the Reagan era or after, in the later part of the Reagan era, and that was the 1980s, I think. That's the last time that people were like, wow. And then, of course, then Clinton came in, and our federal budget or deficit dropped significantly, and there seemed to be a lot of optimism. But gosh, since then, I just don't know what I would be hard pressed to pick a single year that I thought America was doing well in the last 30 years, something like that. It's been a long time.
No argument whatsoever. And that's, again, that's why I like the affordable housing play and the way that you're positioning yourself. because oftentimes when we're, especially real estate people, we're thinking, cool, I'll buy it for 100, it'll go up to 300, and then I can do more because it's going to be, you know, the pretty house business, if you will. And this is not that by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
Not at all. Now, I'm curious because I know some other friends of mine that own parks. Do you guys strictly own the land? You never own any of the coaches at all, or lease those back to people?
No, what happens is when you own a park, if you want to fill your vacant lots, you have to buy the homes to bring them in.
I see.
So, you know, you will, in other words, you have a choice as a park owner. You can either stay where you are and not get involved in the homes, or you can try and fill your remaining vacant lots. If that happens, you'll have to get involved in the homes. Now, there are some things out there today that didn't exist even a few years ago to do that, where you don't have to get that much in the loop. For example, 21st Mortgage, which is part of Clayton Homes, which Warren Buffett owns, they now have a program where they'll bring the homes into your vacant lots, and then they basically sell them in your vacant lots. So in that case, I'm not in the home business. However, the park owner, to make that happen, I have to pay the lot rent or pay the home payment if the customer runs off in between customers. So I'm still a little bit in the loop, but I'm not having to go out and physically buy the home.
Got it.
You also periodically, you'll have someone die in your park. And when that happens, their estate typically comes to you as the park owner and says, hey, I'll just give you the mobile home because I can't move it. And I don't even live in this state, and you'll take it and then you'll resell it. But I mean, our focus, our goal is not to own any homes. And as soon as we get a home, we're racing to make sure we don't own it, that somebody else owns it, because that's not our focus. We don't want to be rental landlords of housing.
Got it. And it makes perfect sense. So let me ask this question, because I know someone is thinking it, if they've listened this far, is a lot of the things you're talking about, it sounds like you're doing lots of social good. You're solving a problem. You're able to do it and make a profit. I can imagine that there's a number of people who would want to participate, or at least know more about what you guys are doing. What's going to be the best way for them to find out more, Frank?
Well, if you want to find out more about affordable housing business, the best place to go is probably our website, which is www.mhu.com. which stands for Mobile Home University. It's a hobby thing that Dave and I started over a decade ago, just to inform the public. And by public, I'm talking a pretty big net, even the media and everybody else, about the truth about the industry. So that's probably where anyone would want to start. There's so many hours of free stuff on there, like hundreds of hours and thousands of pages. And, as you read through that, I mean, mobile home park business doesn't appeal to everyone. There's some people who are they don't like it, don't like the product, don't like the stigma. But, if you look through all that stuff, you'll get a pretty good idea whether it intrigues you or not.
Right.
And, but that's where I would start. I mean, if you Google up mobile home park, you'll find a lot of articles, but what you see a lot is real negative stuff in the media about it. Right. I mean, the media hates mobile home parks. They always have. I can give you any number of TV shows that hate them. Cops hate them. So many people, but they don't understand it. And the movie Eminem's movie 8 Mile, for example.
8 Mile, right?
I mean, that is true. Again, like in a very small microcosm of the industry, but that's not the bulk. I mean, that's like portraying any industry by this tiny little 1 or 2%. Which I'll admit is colorful and interesting and often, a lot more funny and fun than a suburban housing project, right? But it's not the truth. And
right.
So, but if you do Google up, there are people out there starting to show the truth. And, one article, which in fact was one that was based on Dave and I, if you Google up my name, Frank Rolfe, and then New York Times, this giant article in 2014 about the affordable housing industry that was written by a writer who initially hated the industry and was writing a very negative article. And he called me up, and I could tell it was very negative. And we let him live in one of our parks for a week.
Huh.
He loved it. Right? So there's another good article to read.
There's one way to convert him. That's one way to do it. I love it. I love it a lot. Now, Final question as we wrap up here. A number of people, they want to become an entrepreneur. They have the desire to do it. And yet, Frank, from time to time, let's pretend that someone is standing in front of the superhero outfit store right now. They are ready to pick out their cape, their mask. They think they know what their superpower is and how they want to go out there and provide value to people. However, in the back of their head, they have that voice. And I know you know that voice. You've done battle with that voice. In fact, at the beginning, you were doing that battle saying, I'll give it one more year and see what happens. But you've done battle when things go well and things go wrong, and you still showed up every day to make it happen. What I would ask you is, if someone is dealing with that voice right now, going, should I, shouldn't I? Is this really, who am I to really provide value to people in this particular way? What would you say to that person if you knew they were going to actually do what you suggested in the next 24 to 48 hours?
Well, Jay, it's not my quote, but someone once wrote that you need to be more concerned about what you don't do than what you do, right? So, you don't want to. I mean, I would be really mad at myself if I was, about to die, and I look back on all these things I could have done, but I didn't do them for some reason. Right. So it's scarier to have no activity than doing something and having it fail. Right. I mean, you're way better off if you think, man, I could be a fantastic whatever, football player, and you're in high school, but you're too, shy to join the team or something. And your whole life you'd be haunted by, man, if I had just done that. I mean, I read an article in MSN recently about a housewife of 30-something years old who posed as her daughter to go back to high school because she was haunted by the fact that she had never made the cheerleading team. All right.
Wow.
So you don't want to be one of those people. You want to try stuff out. I mean, if anything you do, you look at what's your worst case scenario. And a lot of times your worst case scenario is not to try. Right. So, at the same time, you don't want to bet the farm. A lot of people, they see doing things as an all or nothing. And I don't see it that way. I see everything as like is a baby step situation where if it works, you keep going, but you can always retract yourself. I mean, for example, if you really wanted to start a business, go into real estate, don't quit your day job at that point. Keep the day job, do it at night, do it on the weekends. You have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work out, well, you tried. If it does work out, well, then you can quit your day job. Right. But don't put all your eggs in a basket. I mean, but the big thing is don't be afraid to try stuff. I mean, you gotta try stuff. Everyone takes a huge gamble. The biggest gamble we all take is when we pull out of the driveway in our car.
Right.
It's the number one way we're all going to die.
Right.
So if you say, "Oh, I can't drive my car, I might die." Okay, we got a pretty crummy life sitting around. And never going on a date, never doing a darn thing. So you got to take a gamble. You got to take some risk. Just take sensible risk.
Sensible. I like it.
And just you should be more afraid of not taking the shot than not. I mean, it's like if you get the ball and the shot clock is coming to an end. Take the freaking shot, right? I mean, don't be afraid to do it because if you take it, something great might happen. If you miss it, the same thing would happen if you didn't even take it.
Right.
So you gotta try. I mean, I'm convinced on everything in life. If you try, you'll probably you have a pretty good shot of winning in some category. Maybe not what you expected originally, but it's still good ending, right? I mean, if you said, "Hey, I want to own 20 rent houses," and you only end up with 4, well, that's good. That's way better than 0. But too many people just don't try. Jay, that's a problem. They just don't. They don't understand that their biological clock is ticking, and they got to take the shot. They can't always manana it and come up with excuses, and it doesn't work for anybody. Procrastination is not going to get you anything in life. It's just going to get you lots of unhappiness, a lot of self-doubt.
Indeed. Well, I want to say I thank you for the wisdom that you shared and the perseverance you've shown for that you now can have and share as an example, because It was no small feat to start Billboards and get to 300. It's no small feat to be where you are today with the number of communities and the number of states and the number of people I can only imagine that you've interacted with and stories that you actually have. And thank you for taking the time to just share that wisdom here with us at the Cashflow Diary.
No problem, Jay. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? It means you probably should carpe diem, literally move, do something, take an action, write an offer, make it happen, because you're not going to make any progress unless you start. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.